Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Make America Healthy, where our goal is to empower you, inspire you, and educate you with information and tools so you can take better control of your own physical and mental health. Today's topic is a very important one. We're going to be speaking about traumatic brain injuries and cognitive function. So if you've had a TBI, if you know someone who has, if you've hit your head, you don't even know you hit your head, this show is for you. We have two very special guests with us today. We have Lauren Fields, who specializes in turning dreams into reality. She's a life coach, a TEDx speaker, a podcaster. She's got a master's in psychology, and she tells her personal journey of recovering from a traumatic brain injury, otherwise known as TBI, and her expertise to uplift others through her coaching business and help others heal. We're also joined again by repeat guest, Sally Wesson, who's
Sandy.
registered Sandy. So why do I always call you that? You have to change your name.
It's okay.
She's got a company called Brainworks for Life, and she helps people improve their health by focusing on gut health. Sandy, by the way, I'm waiting to hear about those supplements.
Yes, we'll talk about that.
Brain health and concussion care, cellular detox, neurofeedback, and energy healing. So, ladies, let's get into it. Lauren, we're going to start with you. You have a great story of healing yourself from your own brain injury. I'd like to hear your story and also know how common brain injuries are, and then we'll get into how to know if you have one. Welcome.
Sure. Thank you so much, Beth, for having me. It's an honor to be here. When I was 14, I was in a horse accident, woke up from a coma with a traumatic brain injury. At the time, I didn't know what that meant. I was young. I wanted to sweep it under the rug and go on with my life. I didn't want all of this attention on me, checking in if I was okay, or this uncertainty of what path my life would take following this accident. Certain things the doctors were saying, Lauren may have to relearn how to speak. She may have trouble with memory retention. She may have difficulty walking. She may become violent due to frustration with her circumstances. Keep her out of school. Give her some time to recover from this. And thankfully, I had a really supportive family who believed in me. And I had a very resilient mind. And I said, that's not going to be my story. And so I went back to school. I would say I had brain fog for probably 3 months, and then thought my life was continuing on as normal. And then I started to experience a neurological symptom known as drop foot that happens to some people who have a traumatic brain injury. And then I found myself in hospital waiting rooms, getting MRIs, trying to figure out what was causing this. And at that point, I devoted myself and my life path to wellness and taking care of myself, because I had to keep myself up while going through different surgeries to repair this. And just now coming full circle as studying for a master's in psychology, I realized the significance an event like this can have on people's lives.
Yeah, I have worked with several football players, MMA fighters who have had TBIs. And we did some work actually with a gentleman from the Pittsburgh Steelers years ago who he was pretty checked out. I'm not going to name any names, but the severity obviously differs from person to person. And I had a friend actually who was living in Manhattan, fell down a bunch of stairs after too many drinks and had to quit her high-paying recruitment job and start from scratch in her 40s. TBIs are common. Obviously, people who play sports, they're very common there. Ladies, I open this question up to both of you. How do you even know if you have had a TBI? Maybe you hit your head as a kid, you didn't know it, you were playing football. How would one, if it's not so severe, how would you even know? How would our listeners know?
First, I just want to say thank you for this, for pulling us together, because we're in the month of March, which is Traumatic Brain Injury Awareness Month. So thank you so much. This is a perfect time to talk about it. I want to just correct one myth that you have to hit your head to have a TBI, because you don't. A TBI, when the body's in motion, if you do hit your head, yes, there's going to be a TBI. But even without that, you can have a concussion. Because when the body is in motion, in rapid motion, and then it stops quickly, the brain is still moving inside the skull. So the brain is hitting the side of the head. So it
Can
can,
you give an example of that?
oh
I mean,
gosh,
maybe car accidents come to mind, bike accidents, but again,
there's many people will come to me and say, I can't have a concussion. Didn't hit my head. And yet when I would brain map them and I'd look at that, looking at the function of the brain, then I can see that there's a higher likelihood of a concussion. I'm at this point in time, I'm not doing the neurofeedback and the brain mapping. I'm focusing on other things that are so critical to TBIs.
I was going to ask you about, Sandy, this brain mapping. What mechanism did you use for brain mapping? Were you using a QEEG or?
I use the quantitative QEEG. Yeah. So it's, you still put the cap on them and you're using the electrodes and
Right.
pulling up all the data into a computer and then creating a report from it.
And would you say that is a fairly good indicator?
I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I would. So when someone, say they're in an accident, car accident, whatever, they end up in the ER, which is appropriate, and they'll do MRI or CT scan. That's looking at structure. We need to be looking at function, particularly when it's years out. Do I think they need to look at structure? Yes, because what if there's some small micro tears? What if there's bleeding in the brain? That has to be caught and addressed. That is an important piece of it, but it's not a definitive. I had a client come to me a year and a half after being hit in a head-on accident. It wasn't her fault. When you talk about your friend that had to leave her job, this woman, she had her own business and it was just her.
Yeah.
She couldn't work. She couldn't function. And a year and a half later, the insurance company was pushing her to close the claim, just saying, the doctors all said, this is the way you're going to be the rest of your life. And she heard me speak. She came to me. The first thing we did was work on her gut and get that turned around, because people don't realize, doctors don't even talk about it. I don't think they all know that when we have a head injury, then very often within 3 days, there's gut problems, there's digestion
So it
issues.
upsets the microbiome.
It affects what happens is the brain and the digestive tract are connected by the vagus nerve, longest nerve in the body. Goes to the heart, the lungs, but it ends in the digestive tract. So when we have such a shock to the brain, causing that inflammation, the swelling in the brain, that shock goes down to the gut. Because people would say, gosh, why is there nausea and vomiting? For some people, not everybody, but for some people with a head injury. And it's that connection. It's that sudden shock to the gut. So then people can have nausea and vomiting. Ultimately, will that affect the microbiome? Yes. But initially, that episode is from that shock, that trauma. So now the gut stays inflamed. And as long as the gut is inflamed and we're not digesting well, the brain stays inflamed because we've got leaky gut.
Right.
So now that, and once the microbiome is affected, then that communication back to the brain is there. So in order to heal a traumatic brain injury, in my experience, and now more and more are starting to understand this, but we have to heal the gut to heal the brain. And
for a lot of people going on, and actually it's interesting because this friend of mine who had the TBI, she also had some weight issues. At some point she went Whole30 and she was cleaning up her diet. And I'm wondering if that was, I lost track of her. She moved to Colorado, but I'm wondering if that helped her recovery process as well.
For many
out of the body to get the gluten out, the sugar out.
Yes, for many people, when we have toxicities, it's not just in our gut and the rest of our body, it travels to the brain. So for many people, I had a 2-tour Iraqi veteran who came to me with multiple TBIs, multiple concussions, because that was his job, to go out and find those, what are they called, the AIDs or whatever, and blow them up. We had multiple concussions. He came in, and when I evaluated him, it's, you know what? Your brain isn't going to heal as well until we detox you and we work on your gut. We get your digestion working. And we did. I put him through a full, deeper detox because he was full of parasites. He was full of all these other issues
Yes,
that people don't think about.
Last time you were on Make
I know.
Healthy, we talked about your own cleansing, where you said that during your parasite detox, I believe that something with wings came out of your
I
body.
had one big thing with wings. You never know. And so for him, once we took him through that, and because I could, each time I took him to the next realm of detox, the next phase, I did a brain map because I knew it worked, but I wanted to see it because we weren't doing neurofeedback on him to change his brain. We were just cleaning out his body.
So brain mapping again using the same mechanism?
Yes.
Okay.
So the first couple of months, I didn't see huge changes. I didn't expect to because we were just in that cleaning phase. But like on month 3, I started seeing changes in the brain. On month 4, on month 5. It works. And he described the changes in how he felt. He was thinking more clearly. He was less angry. There was all these different things. And it was from cleaning up the body and the brain, healing the gut.
So for people who perhaps they're suffering from a cognitive dysfunction, perhaps they're suffering from digestive issues, perhaps they're just like not drop foot withstanding.
Oh my gosh, you went through.
They're having some questions that they can't answer, and they suspect that maybe they have had a TBI, and they're like, I was in a car accident when I was in college. Perhaps they were in a car accident, they hit their head, they fell, they again were playing sports. Where should they go? What is their first stop to try to get some answers?
It depends on where they live and what's available.
Right. Can you give a laundry list for our listeners?
If you've just experienced it and it was big, like a car accident or even a big sporting event, I do recommend go ahead, see your doctor. If you need, go to the ER and make sure there's nothing structural.
How educated are most conventional doctors on brain health?
Not a lot. And more people there's more talk about it. But I know that compared to 30 years when I had my first TBI, there was no information because my head was hurting, my neck was hurting. My doctor gave me muscle relaxants. 6 years ago, when I had a TBI, and on that one, I was unconscious for a period of time. I don't know how long because I was alone. But with that one, I had my protocol. I knew what to do. So at least I could start on my digestion right away before it got bad, because it did start getting worse. But I worked on myself with my protocol, which I'm addressing the gut, the brain, the mitochondria, so many different things that people don't think about. I've not heard of anyone else that really does everything I do. And I've had the pleasure of being able to see the changes on the brain. So in terms of a kind of a laundry list for people, right away, pay attention to your diet, please. If you eat gluten, if you eat dairy, for a period of time, take those out of your diet. I know it's not easy, particularly when you have head injury and it's hard to think, but get those out of your diet because they're inflammatory for so many people. We want to decrease the inflammation. We want your gut to heal. So working on that, working on your digestion are the two big things. Look at your diet and digestion, depending on what's going on. I've had other clients who one gal came in 8 years after, and she had been to everybody and tried different things, but no one worked on her gut.
Lauren, I'm going to jump to you for a minute.
Yes.
You were very young when this happened, and so you had to get on a path of self-discovery. What type of resources did you lean on? And I'm assuming that you look great, but 14 years old was probably a while ago. Where did you start and where did you find yourself? And what was that process like as a young woman trying to heal her own brain injury?
I think we have all of these resources around us that we may not see are readily available through books or YouTube videos or now podcasts. There's so much information if you just look for it. And so what I did is I dove into books and I started reading all of these different books on wellness, self-empowerment, psychology, self-actualization, traumatic brain injuries, just to understand what had happened to me and again, how to best stabilize myself as I recovered from a few different surgeries I had due to this accident. And I just realized we have this whole world this infinite world inside of us that we can start to learn about and take care of. And oftentimes it's not until a traumatic event happens to you that you tune in and start doing the inner work.
Right. The inner work is so very important. Was yoga or meditation part of your practice?
Both huge parts. I actually ended up doing my yoga teacher training while I was living in New York City, my 200-hour teacher training, because I think that really helps me connect to my breath and my breathing, which is such an important part of your overall well-being, to be connected to the breath. And that really helps for anyone experiencing anxiety or depression to really connect to your breath. And for me, that was through movement and through yoga. And that's actually how I got into meditation, because at the end of my yoga practice in Shavasana, I was able to start to meditate because I was so calm.
Beautiful. So let's talk about tips for your brain, whether you've had a TBI or you haven't. What can we do, Sandy, to maintain the health of our brain? I just got a text from my cousin. What are those cognitive enhancers you recommend? Because he's not on any type of a protocol for cognitive function after receiving the word that he had in his DNA chart an Alzheimer's gene, and he is in his 50s, so he better get up on it. What would you tell my cousin? What would you tell other people how to take care of your brain?
First of all, pay attention to your gut. And then there are other things that are really important. So omega-3s, our brain cells are primarily made of fat. So we need to have the good fats, whether it's eating a lot of avocado, whether it's salmon, if you're a fish eater, but we need those good fats for the brain cells. So that would be one huge one. And then there are a variety of different supplements. I like using one that has a blend of different things. It's what I give to my clients. And movement, as you guys were already saying, is so important. Even if someone that's already older now and they don't do yoga, they don't do other things, but they can get out and go for a walk.
I just want to say, because I was reading some
And
statistics yesterday, that only 40% of people 60 plus practice yoga. Really, the older you get, the more important it is for everyone to be practicing yoga. The right yoga practice, and what we teach at Yoga Fit, is that yoga meets you where you are. We offer several modifications on each pose. And not only does it help cognitive function and awareness and mindfulness, but as we get older, we get more rigid, more stiff, and we want to be like bamboo, strong and flexible. So anyone who's listening, no matter how old you are, you should be doing yoga. But if you're over 60, you definitely should be doing yoga. And there's many yogis who are in their 90s. My first yoga teacher was 93 years old. There are many yogis into their hundreds still practicing and teaching. The good news is that's something you can do for your entire life, and you can take it with you wherever you go. No equipment necessary. That is my commercial for yoga.
So really quickly on that note, since so many people do have physical issues,
Right.
You teach some that if they've got spinal issues, they can still have movement. Just so people know, you don't have to be, like you said, regardless of how you're physically
I taught in
experiencing
my
life.
grandmother's retirement home. People were in chairs, they were in wheelchairs, they were old. There's something for everyone. And any movement is good movement as long as it's safe movement. That's what we say at Yoga Fit. And again, yoga is invaluable as a key. In fact, I'm coming up with a yoga for longevity program that we'll be launching at Yoga Fit's Mind Body Fitness Conference in Scottsdale in July, because really it's the key to longevity. And from that doorway of yoga, so many beautiful things like meditation and higher realms of consciousness, awareness, better eating, more energy awareness happen. What else can we do for our brain?
We talked about exercise. We've talked about some supplements. I'm not going to give recommendations of specific supplements, but to look into supplements for cognitive function.
What about learning as we get older, taking on new languages, new experiences, new
Absolutely. Use our
fitness
brains.
programs?
Use our brains.
Additionally, I think sleep is so important when learning about brain health. And I'm sure, Sandy, you can speak a little bit more on this, but for me, that has been huge.
Absolutely. And a concussion will impact our sleep as someone's going through that healing process at a time when sleep is so important for the brain, because that's when the brain detoxes. So you may have to get a little help with that, trying some magnesium at night to help the brain settle down if it's something that is an issue. But yes, I absolutely, Lauren, sleep is huge.
Lauren, thank you for mentioning that.
Of
Yes.
course.
Yes. And hydration. Many people don't drink enough water. And without adequate water, it's just so important for cellular function to help get the toxins out of the cells. And one other point for thinking about the brain is the mitochondria, where the mitochondria in every cell makes energy. In every cell of the body, there's at least 1,000 mitochondria per cell. In the heart and liver, about 5,000 mitochondria. In the brain, 10,000 mitochondria per cell, approximately. So it's very important then for us to take care of ourselves at a cellular energy as well, because if we aren't feeling well, where are we going to notice it first? In our brains.
And that can also manifest as mood disorders, emotional dysregulation.
Yes.
Lauren, you mentioned the doctor said you might get angry. So, any final words of wisdom for our listeners before we close?
It's hard to have enough time to really talk about everything. And I'm so grateful that Lauren's here and can talk about her experience because it was profound. And you are so resilient. And it just speaks to who you are. At 14, I'm going to figure this out. And I love that, the attitude. But so many people want to learn more about concussions and what to do about them. And so I've put together a concussion brain injury masterclass on the 20th and 21st of this month of March. I will be taking a 2-hour time frame each day. So it's a lot of information crammed into a short period of time, but some people with head injuries just initially have a hard time focusing. So I wanted to keep it short.
Do we have a code for our listeners?
On my website. So if you go to brainworksforlife.com, there's a place that they can sign up for the masterclass because it's free.
Sandy, we'll put that in the show notes if you want to send me an email on that. I'm going to give everyone who's listening to the show. My email is beth@yogafit.com. So if you need to reach me or send me your link to the BrainWorks. So great. Thank you so much for that. And Sandy, we can find you. What's the website again?
Brainworksforlife.
Brainworksforlife.com. Lauren, where can our listeners find you?
You can find me at Fields, my last name Fields, Fields, well.com, or Lauren Fields on Instagram.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. This has been a great show. Very, very informational for our listeners. Dear listener, if you know someone who could benefit from this show, please share it with others. We'd like to thank the sponsors of this show, Life Boost Coffee, making clean, pesticide-free, organic, mold-free coffee grown in shade, and they pay their farmers an equitable wage. Check out my new mindfulness blend of half-calf dark roast coffee. LifeBoostCoffee.com. Save 15% at checkout by using the code YogaFit. Also, we would like to thank Erconia Lasers, high-level lasers for you to cure your pain, your inflammation, arthritis, scar tissue. I use the Erconia laser on my dog, and it's very helpful. So check out Erconia Lasers. They're great lasers, whether you're a vet tech, an animal lover. These lasers work on horses, cats, dogs, and humans. Check out Erconia Lasers. We'd also like to thank our title sponsor, YogaFit Training Systems Worldwide, the leader in yoga, mind, body, fitness education, offering conferences, workshops, classes, ongoing corporate wellness, and so much more. Go to yogafit.com if you're a yoga practitioner or a novice or just want to take care of your back pain and improve your posture. Check out yogafit.com, save 15% at checkout by using the code MAH. You can find me on Instagram at Beth Shaw Health or via my website, bethshaw.com. And again, thank you so much for listening to Make America Healthy. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Namaste, everyone. Thank you.